Project Sentinel, Episode 36. The Nerve Cut. 1. The Razor's Edge. The Vigilant danced in the dark like a fighter in the final round, a 50-meter obsidian blade weaving and juking at the edge of destruction. Miller's hands flew across the helm as he executed high G maneuvers that pushed the inertial dampeners to their absolute limits. The hull groaned and creaked with every violent course correction. "They're coming faster, Captain," Sergeant Lewis shouted from tactical, his voice cutting through the chaos. "The Cocoon is shifting its mass to compensate for our PDL tracking pattern. It's learning our rhythm." "Cho, status on the Rosetta override," Kray commanded, bracing himself against a console as the ship banked hard. "Broadcast is constant on all frequencies," Lieutenant Cho replied, sweat glistening on her brow. "The Purge Command is suppressing the worst of the automated response, but the physical defense system isn't listening. To the Waypoint, we're a clean unit that needs to be tethered and protected, whether we want it or not." The bridge was a storm of red combat lighting and the sharp staccato crack of the point defense lasers, firing in rapid bursts. Each time a golden filament snaked too close, the PDLs snapped to life, vaporizing the alien lattice in brilliant white flashes that left afterimages burned into the crew's retinas. The obsidian hull absorbed most of the recoil, but the ship still shuddered violently with every impact. Kray gripped the command rail, eyes locked on the main view screen. The massive cocoon surrounding Ship 1 loomed like a living predator. Golden threads lashed out in coordinated waves, probing, adjusting, adapting. What had begun as a desperate preservation mechanism had become something far more aggressive. "Distance to the primary umbilical?" Kray asked. 12,000 kilometers and closing, Bradley reported, his voice tight. "The Cocoon is extending more filaments from the pyramid base. It's trying to create a wider capture net." The Vigilant rolled sharply as Miller evaded another cluster of threads. Alarms blared as one filament grazed the port side, leaving a faint glowing scar on the obsidian plating before the PDLs burned it away. Kray felt the weight of every decision. 36 light hours from home. No reinforcements. They were dancing on the razor's edge against an ancient intelligence that didn't understand the difference between rescue and consumption. "Keep us moving," he ordered. "We cannot afford to get tethered, not even for a second." The crew worked with grim precision. Every officer knew the stakes. One mistake, one delayed laser shot, and the Vigilant would join Ship 1 inside that crystalline prison. 2. The missile solution. "Target locked," Dr. Thorne announced, his voice cutting through the tension. "The central umbilical, the primary power and data conduit between the pyramid station and Ship 1's spine. It's glowing hot on every resonance spectrum. That is the nerve center of the entire Cocoon." Kray nodded once, jaw set. "Zahn, prep the resonance disruption warheads. We need a clean sever. If we only damage it, the Cocoon might tighten like a fist and crush what's left of Ship 1. "Warheads are primed and tuned," Zahn reported from the armory deck, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Inverse frequency of the safe handshake protocol. These should act like a local anesthetic, numbing the network's grip without triggering a full defensive collapse." Kray took one final look at the tactical display. The golden threads were thickening, reaching farther with every passing second. Fire! The missiles left their tubes with a deep, resonant thud that vibrated through every deck. 2 emerald-black projectiles streaked away from the Vigilant, carving clean lines through the void as they accelerated toward the glowing umbilical. On the bridge, the crew held their collective breath. The point defense lasers continued their relentless work, burning away the nearest filaments while the missiles closed the distance. Impact in 5, 4, 3. Bradley counted down. The warhead struck the thick, pulsing umbilical dead center. Instead of a conventional explosion, a brilliant wave of discordant violet energy erupted outward in a perfect sphere. The golden threads within the blast radius shattered like glass, dissolving into glittering fragments that drifted away into the dark. For a heartbeat, the deafening scream of Ship 1, that ancient amplified cry, fell into a terrifying absolute silence. 3. The impact. "The cage is dropping," Thorne yelled, triumph mixing with disbelief. "Resonance field collapse at the midsection. We have a viable window." The Cocoon recoiled violently. Golden filaments thrashed in apparent confusion and pain, peeling away from Ship 1's bone-white hull in long, curling strips. Cracks spiderwebbed across the lattice as sections of the crystalline structure lost coherence and began to fracture. The scream returned, but different now, no longer amplified into a deafening roar by the station's field. It came through as a raw, faint, almost human-sounding plea. The Vigilant sensors registered the change immediately. The heartbeat-like pulse from Ship 1's core had stabilized, growing slightly stronger. "Structural integrity on Ship 1 is holding," Bradley reported. "The Cocoon is retracting, but it's fighting every centimeter." Kray watched the view screen with fierce intensity. "Lewis, boarding party status?" "Ready and standing by," Lewis replied. "We've got a narrow window before it starts regenerating." The bridge crew moved with renewed urgency. The momentary silence after the strike had been more unnerving than the scream itself, as if the ancient ship had finally taken a breath after 10,000 years of suffocation. Zahn's voice came over the comm. "The disruption is working, but it's temporary. The network is already rerouting power through secondary filaments. We have maybe 10 to 15 minutes before it begins to rebuild." "Understood," Kray said. "Make it count." 4. The hot drop. "Lewis, go," Kray barked. Miller brought the Vigilant in dangerously close, within mere meters of the exposed bone-white hull of Ship 1. The 4-man Marine squad, accompanied by Zahn and Dr. Payne, launched from the deployment bay in a textbook hot drop. Suit thrusters flared as they crossed the void, mag boots slamming onto the ancient hull just as fresh golden filaments began to regrow and reach toward them. Sergeant Lewis fired a grappling line into a jagged rent in the hull, securing the team. One by one they pulled themselves inside the dead giant. "We're in," Lewis panted, his voice crackling with static over the comm. "But the ship is waking up. The reset did something to the internal systems. It's breathing." The team moved carefully through the frozen corridors. Their helmet lights cut through the darkness, revealing bone-white walls that seemed to absorb and reflect the beams in unsettling ways. Mag boots clacked against the deck plating. Lights flickered on ahead of them, not bright, but deliberate, outlining passages as if the ship itself were guiding them deeper. Zahn's suit sensors picked up faint power fluctuations. The internal lattice is still active. It's rerouting energy around the damage we caused. Payne stayed close, scanning everything. "This feels different from the other relics, more aware." The team pressed forward toward the engineering sanctum, every shadow and flicker of light putting them on edge. They had entered the belly of a beast that had been sleeping for millennia, and now it was stirring. 5. The ghost in the machine. Inside the engineering sanctum of Ship 1, the golden filaments glowed a brilliant, steady white instead of the aggressive violet outside. As Zahn and Payne approached the central spire, consoles around them began to flicker to life. Unlike the other wrecks, systems here responded almost eagerly. Airlock doors cycled automatically as the team passed. Lights followed them, brightening and dimming in sequence. The ship felt alive in a way none of the previous relics had. "Captain," Zahn whispered, his helmet light falling on a central pedestal that was still warm to the touch. "This isn't a dead core. The Waypoint wasn't eating this ship. It was acting as an external heart. It was keeping the ship's consciousness on life support all this time." A holographic display shimmered into existence above the pedestal. It wasn't a map or a log file. It was a single, high-fidelity image of a star system. The sun and the 9 planets exactly as humans had mapped them in the 21st century. Payne stared, stunned. They weren't just coming this way. They were already watching us. The display pulsed once, then stabilized. The image of Earth glowed noticeably brighter than the rest. A deliberate, focused highlight. The scream they had followed across 36 light hours had not been random. It had been a directed call for help. Ship 1 had been calling for rescue. And now, after 10,000 years of silence, it finally had an answer. This concludes today's episode of Project Sentinel. Please join our crew and subscribe for your twice-weekly episodes. We post each Tuesday and Friday at 1800.